Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Siegfried and checking if this research bureau ship is worth picking up in 2025. Siegfried's been in the game for quite a while. Back when it was released, it was rather unique at tier 9 for its caliber of gun, especially for its dispersion for such high caliber guns here. 380mm guns with cruiser dispersion, 2.05 Sigma on this ship as well. So incredibly accurate, consistent, large caliber guns here. Your armor is okay for its tier as well. But as this game has progressed, we've seen some new ships introduced at your tier. And unfortunately, the matchmaker as well has changed with the introduction of super ships, which I'll talk about more later. But just know that Siegfried still has very accurate, hard-hitting guns. If you can catch cruisers broadside, you're going to do some good damage. That's a double citadel there into that hipper, front guns only in this case. I'm over pushing here, but I want to show you this as an example of what you can do in Siegfried, especially if you get games against your own tier, or maybe you're playing ranked game modes. This has a lot of HP, a lot of healing, a 6-kilometer hydro, torpedoes that go 6 kilometers as well, and do some decent damage here. This is a very good ship, getting on a flank, finding broadsides, and pushing, taking the initiative on that flank. It's quite solid in that position. Our gun traverse not quite enough to get us that Groningen kill a little sooner. But as we ground there, we do manage to traverse the guns. It's a little bit slow to traverse the guns. It's a little bit sluggish ship overall. It's rather large, but it has the guns to back it up. Generally, you're going to get consistent salvos out of this thing. Against angled targets, though, not so much. 380s don't have much overmatch at this tier, so you really do need to be finding those broadsides. Bit of the elephant in the room these days, although hopefully they will be gone soon, is the experimental ships. Vyazma just does everything you do, but way, way better. More damage, higher caliber, insane burst fire, improved pen angles. It's just you, but better. Hopefully, those will be gone soon, but it is something to consider that Siegfried is a much worse version of that ship. Compared to a Sevastopol, though, I think that's a very interesting comparison. If you're looking at research bureau ships, you may be considering that one. If you're interested in a cruiser dispersion 380mm caliber battle cruiser, this is a better version of it for its tier. You're going to get similar matchmaker, but I do think Siegfried at its tier is better than Sevastopol at its tier. The armor is similar, slightly better in some ways on Siegfried. Your upper belt at close range actually provides you with some solid protection. Having torpedoes is really, really nice for situations like this. We even have some turtleback that protected us from that thunder salvo. Turtleback's really useful when you're brawling it out at those closer ranges, and you will need to make use of it because your turret angles really aren't that amazing. Something that the Sevastopol does have over Siegfried is those firing angles. So on Sevastopol, we saw it 27 forward, 32 degrees backwards. Unfortunately for Siegfried, you got to give 34 degrees of broadside forward and 36 degrees of broadside when kiting. And I found that to be quite limiting, shall we say, especially into these up tiers. Oftentimes, really, to play it safe, I needed to just use my front guns in positions like this one. Otherwise, we're going to take maybe not citadels, but a lot of full pens from these enemy battleships. Or if you run into a Colombo with SAP, for example, that is going to be a very painful day for you. This ship, while having decent broadside armor, your bow and stern armor is only 27mm. So Wisconsin can easily punch right through us. It's very strange. This ship is large and has decent armor, but oftentimes I find myself taking rather sizable hits, 10,000-15,000 damage hits from battleships, even well angled. It's a very strange one to play. So you notice me playing around islands here quite a bit. I did try some flanking routes as well as more open water play, but into these up tiers, I mean, this one we're fully up tiered into super ships. You're going to take a lot of damage very quickly with this ship when you're playing it open water. It's sluggish, it doesn't dodge particularly well. So I often found myself playing island cover, positions where I get a little closer to the battle, limiting who can actually fire at me. This often allowed me to catch people's broadsides too. When I play more open water positions, it's a lot easier for people to just angle to me, and it's a lot harder to get those flanking positions, especially in these up tiers, because people play so far back. Just look at that Satsuma positioning on the minimap. It's hard to get a flanking route on someone playing like that. However, if we use island cover, then we can start to isolate some fights, and when we get those broadsides, I mean, just look at that dispersion. Even into a Kremlin, 3 hits, 3 citadels. That's really nice consistency. It's not always going to happen. You're still going to get trolled from time to time. But cruiser dispersion 2.05 Sigma is a big deal. That is really, really nice consistency here. Compared to Sevastopol, again, I do have to mention that this ship will be a little bit worse against angled targets too, thanks to the pen angles. Just standard pen angles here, so nothing too bad, but Sevastopol does have the 50 to 65 degree pen angles, so 5 degrees better on both of those compared to the Siegfried. Oregon punching right through our armor. Our deck armor is 30 millimeters only, so 457s, a lot of that these days are going to punch through us. That's again why I'm not trying to play this ship in these up tiers open water, because we do just get overmatched everywhere, and we're a very, very large target. And yes, Colombo Sap, lovely time that is. You really have to watch out for that thing. Absolute menace these days. Colombo, especially with that legendary mod. Even if they don't have that legendary mod, though, Siegfried is just so large, so easy to hit, that I wouldn't be surprised if that guy didn't have legendary mod and still managed to get those massive hits into us. Our heals are standard here, so we don't get the funky heals like Sevastopol does have. But I see that as a positive thing overall. I don't actually view Sevastopol heals as a benefit to that ship. More a detriment, actually, because it is so hard to get the most value out of them. And crucially, they have such a long cooldown time that you may not be able to position yourself to get value out of those heals without playing too passive when the heal is on that cooldown, unfortunately. Now, when people are going to angle to you, you might be thinking, I should just swap to the HE. And you could, but the damage isn't amazing at 4400 alpha. You have good pen though at 95 millimeters, 34% fire chance. I just found that AP still did decent damage into angled targets. Nearly 5,000 damage there, and actually in-capping the turret there temporarily. Hoping that can help keep our Jacksonville there alive, although he has pushed quite far, so I assume he's going to go down here. The AP can do decent damage into angled targets. Even if you don't have those improved pen angles, the accuracy is just so good that, especially with battleships, we're able to pinpoint superstructures. So there's another nearly 7,000 damage into a Colombo superstructure. So I found myself often sticking to that AP, and really the bread and butter of this ship is that flanking broadside salvo. So if you're going to swap to the HE, if you're someone who does that a lot more than I do, really make sure you take Gunfeeder, because you do not want to be missing those opportunities. This game does end, but we got 60k spotting in that position, even in a super ship matchmaker. And while we look at this Azuma walking broadside first thing and hoping our cruiser dispersion delivers a dev strike for this guy, or at least some good damage, I should talk about that matchmaker issue. I played a total of 11 Siegfried games. 11 games. That is way more than I usually do, because I wanted to get some good matches out of this ship. It was quite difficult for me, all right? I am not someone who enjoys these 6-gun ships, but I know this ship can perform given the right situation. And out of those 11 games, 6 of them, over half, were full up tiers into super ships. It was very, very hard, okay? And this is a big problem for tier 9s these days, is that super ship matchmaker pulls you up the vast majority of the time. And even if you aren't pulled up into super ships, most of the rest of those games, those remaining 5, most of those were pulled up into tier 10s. Your matchmaker is one of the worst. I think it's tier 9 or tier 8 have the worst matchmaker pool these days. They really do see up tiers the vast majority of the time, unfortunately. So for a Siegfried, especially with this armor profile that is good against your own tier, but really falls apart when we get into tier 10 with all the 30 mil overmatch, and certainly into super ships with even more of that, especially with longer range gameplay too. I want you to notice how good the armor is when we get at closer ranges, especially when people can't overmatch 27. This Sicilia here cannot overmatch our 27 mil bow, and we're easily going to be able to push out on him and tank him forever here. It's really strong in these situations. It's very strange, actually, playing a Siegfried. You go from one of the weaker armored ships, cruisers, at your tier when you're facing 30 millimeters of overmatch, because every other cruiser takes that same amount of overmatch at your tier. They're just smaller, more nimble, and have better detection than you. So they can avoid it a little bit easier than you can into that 30 millimeters of overmatch. As soon as they don't have 30 millimeters of overmatch, though, you become very, very tanky, especially when you don't have to deal with 27 mil overmatch like this Sicilia here. Look at that. He did 4,800 to us. You have absolutely insane armor in fights like this one, but very weak armor as soon as that overmatch comes into play. And this is maybe my main frustration with Siegfried. The guns actually are quite accurate. We're going to pinpoint the little step up on his deck armor there and get 4 full pens. That's over 12,000 damage into an angled Sicilia, just because he has that small portion that is flat when he's angling like that. Very nice to be able to pinpoint that portion of the ship. The accuracy is quite good, quite consistent. Yeah, that Azuma didn't take as much damage that I'd hoped, but we still got a Citadel into him. The ship is very, very strong in these closer ranged positions when you can fight your own tier, when you don't have to deal with the overmatch. But as soon as you have to deal with those up tiers, those more passive games, that massive amount of overmatch, suddenly you can't get into these positions where you're able to exploit enemy broadsides. And suddenly you're sniping from longer range where most people are going to be angled to you and the guns don't feel nearly as potent. And the enemies will deal a lot of damage back to you. This is a ship that absolutely thrives in the down tier and is miserable to play in the up tier, unfortunately. And there are plenty of ships like that. Most tier 9s feel like that. But I really think Siegfried is uniquely poor into these up tiers and very strong into those down tiers. So if you can play this ship in special game modes like ranked, where you can guaranteed be against your own tier, brawling situations, any sort of special game mode that they introduced, whether that be airship escort type stuff coming back, or perilous route maybe. I don't know if that's for tier 9. I haven't actually looked into that mode yet. Anything like that, it can do very well in. I just need you to know, if you're going to pick this ship up and you're exclusively going to be playing random battles, I think it'll be a rather frustrating experience for you. And it's not just because PQ doesn't like 6-gun ships, okay? I think it really does come down to the fundamental design of a ship like this one, being so large with solid armor against your own tier, really falls apart as soon as you get into those up tiers, unfortunately. The Hydro, the Torps, the decent amount of healing allow you to be a bit of a bully into these down tiers, or if you fight ships that aren't exclusively overmatching you, or you can find the flanks where they're not focused on you. Fortunately, that Vermont didn't shoot us. But I really do want you to consider that. The guns, though, are quite potent. I didn't get any sort of amazingly high damaging games, but overall I found the guns to be rather solid. One last Sicilia salvo, and again, really not fazed by that. It's a weird ship to play, all right? And if you're interested in battle cruisers, I think you're going to enjoy playing the Siegfried. It's just those up tiers that are the big issue for this one. And perhaps I haven't compared this ship enough against its tier 9 battle cruiser counterparts, so ships like Aegir, maybe Alaska if you have that, Carnot, Kronstadt if you have that one. I really enjoyed the accuracy of this thing. Yes, you only have 6 guns versus most of those have 9 guns. They just have battle cruiser dispersion formula, which is a lot worse than cruiser dispersion formula. And I really did notice the difference. I really enjoyed the guns on this one, surprisingly. I've been playing a lot of 6-gun ships thanks to Ship Request. Thank you guys, really appreciate that. And I think part of that is I'm really focused in when I'm playing the cruisers with battle cruiser dispersion, or 6 guns in particular. I'm taking outnumbered a lot more and positioning myself on flanks, trying to activate this skill. 10% dispersion is a ton, and I think that's helping me out a lot. In the past, I would complain about dispersion and not be running outnumbered, or not consciously making an effort to make use of outnumbered. And, you know, in that first clip with the Hipper, we had outnumbered procced, and the dispersion was really nice. It still has good dispersion without it, but for me personally, since my main complaint with 6 guns is the lack of consistency, running a skill like this is very important to me. But if you're finding the dispersion to be just fine without this skill, it is 4 points. It's very expensive. This is just a free damage upgrade here. There's no downside outside of the opportunity cost of 3 points. 5% more damage, really solid. You could be taking Survivability Expert for even more HP. Taking Gun Feeder or Grease the Gears here. The recommended build is actually quite solid too here, making sure you get Grease the Gears there. The turret traverse is very, very, very slow. I'm used to battleships, even played a ton of Yamato, so very used to slow turrets and trying to position them early. It still gets me from time to time. It was, as we saw on that Groningen earlier. That is definitely a weak point of this ship. But the accuracy, I am willing to sacrifice some of those things to gain that outnumbered proc every once in a while. It's difficult to use though, admittedly. 30 mil deck armor, but 90 mil upper belt. Unfortunately, the Colombo Sap can pen this. So that's why it did so much damage to us. But a lot of HE shatters here, so if you're into that closer range where cruisers aren't getting as much plunging fire, destroyers, maybe some of them can pen 30 these days, not as much plunging fire, they're going to shatter a lot. You're very tanky at those closer range positions. 27 mil bow, very large, no icebreaker. That's the problem here. Citadel, quite large, above water. When you're broadside, that turtleback will be protecting you. You saw how the Thunder did not get citadels into our broadside at point blank, even though we're way, way above water with this citadel. That's thanks to this turtleback being so useful here. It's a very weird ship in that this armor scheme is very good. These guns are great into your own tier and down tiers. As soon as we get into those up tiers, though, that falls apart rather quickly. Unfortunate. It's just kind of the way things are for tier 9s these days. They can fight tier 7s, and it's an absolute bully against tier 7s. They're not even fair a lot of the time. You overmatch tier 7 battleships everywhere, and they often won't even be overmatching 27 here. Some of them certainly do, but they won't even overmatch you here. So it's a very weird experience playing tier 9 and tier 8 where you get those down tiers into some very weak ships at tier 6, tier 7, but also have to deal with some pretty crazy up tiers these days. Just the overall power level at the top end here has increased so much recently with super ships and tier 10s that some of these ships that have to face both that high tier and some of that mid tier, low tier gameplay feel very strange to play and very matchmaker dependent. And that, I think, is the main issue here with the Siegfried. Equipment-wise, pretty standard. Nothing really much to talk about here. You have really good range, by the way. I suppose I hadn't mentioned that yet. You even get a spotter plane, but 20.6 kilometers of range, 11.9 detect. Quite solid and more than enough for most of your games. Even into those up tiers, 20 is fine, especially with the spotter plane, even into super ship passive games. You can make it work. But again, I found myself doing very little damage when I played that more open water, constantly using my guns role, especially in those up tiers. I really wanted to make more use out of my positioning with my time in those games to find those positions, to get that Kremlin broadside, for example. Takes a lot more effort and time not shooting your guns, using your concealment to find those positions. But I found my matches were a lot better in those situations where I took some time to not use my guns, position my ship well, rather than just off spawn, going to a side of the map, and then just firing on cooldown into angled ships the entire match and wondering why I didn't have the best experience. But let me know what you think in the comments down below about the Siegfried. If this is a ship that you have, let us know what you think, because those looking to get this ship could use a wide variety of opinions. Thank you very much for watching this video, and have a great rest of your day.